It's the Tune In with Power Psychology and Find Your Joy on the Health and Wellness Channel, only on TVU. This week, we have Counseling Psychology Master's student, Monica Frick. How are you doing today, Monica?
I'm doing well. How about yourself, James?
Very good, very good. Good to see you. It's been a while since we've seen you.
Yeah, it sure has. It's been really busy in the world of psychology with everything that's kind of going around in the world right now.
So you had doing lots of good work. So you have a very interesting topic. It piqued my interest. What are you going to talk about today?
So with schools starting up next week, I think in most school divisions across the province, I thought it'd be really important to talk about how we can best support children in the home prior to this transition to really set them up for success.
Okay, so here they come. You know, they've come through a possibly a disjointing, odd summer.
Yeah.
Fabulous, but very different. So they would be, wound in a little different way. They've finished the school year with a brand new way of learning, which there was some good things and some bad things. So here they are. What do you suggest?
I think one of the biggest things to consider is that transition back to school every year is a really big transition for kids and for families. They're going from having a completely different schedule or maybe a less structured schedule, and now they're having to move back to getting into routine. So that's already one big transition for these kids. Now we need to take into consideration that, first of all, they've been away from school for an extended period of time, right? So that schedule is going to be even more disjointed at this point. And then second of all, we have to consider that they're going into schools that are going to have a different setup than they ever had before. So we really want to consider that and help these kids get ready, get into some sort of routine and a schedule, and start to get used to some of the things that are going to be expected in the school environment that they once were not expected to do.
So, there's a few things that would, come to my mind as I picture myself being a little guy, going back to school, got my brand new haircut, got my clothes. They're a little awkward because I haven't been washed enough. My shoes aren't flexible. I want to run. It's a little hot out, but I got to wear. Yeah. Now I got to put this mask on, right?
Yeah.
And kids are coughing, they're washing hands. What kind of suggestion for dealing with this pandemic and how close up it is?
Yeah. So, in Alberta right now, in a lot of the big epicenters, we are required to wear masks in public regardless. There are some exceptions, obviously, if there's health considerations, kids' age. But with schools, most school divisions are going to have some sort of expectation for masks. The biggest thing is school's going to feel kind of chaotic. So as a parent, we want to allow kids to get used to these things in a more safe environment. So one of my big suggestions would be to do some role play at home. Get your kids doing something that's exciting for them, that they really enjoy. Play a game with them, have your mask on too, show them it's not so scary, be a good role model for them. So maybe your kiddo really loves baking. Maybe choose something to bake and say, Kate, we're going to practice wearing our mask for the whole time we're baking. You and I are in a team together. And so really show them that you're aligned with them and that you're a team with them, and also allow them to experience something that might feel uncomfortable or scary while they're doing something that they do enjoy.
Okay. And so, bringing that anxiety, not that it's all there, because being a kid, they don't show a lot of stress about much, right? They're more, if you truly ask them, I'd say up to grade 6, their favorite subject is going to be recess, honestly, right? So, but that's a great thing, now, but they do pick up little things, and it seems to be in that grade 5, grade 6, fears start to rise. I don't know what's happening with, mental development, but the sound of bumps at the furnace at night or whatever can keep a young person up, a long time as they calm down. So now these kind of fears of this pandemic, you've been dealing with it, how can a parent, talk their little ones, back into some confidence?
So I think the first thing is acknowledging that there's probably a lot of parents that are anxious too, and we don't want to dismiss that. But as an adult or as a parent, we really need to make sure that we're the ones that are staying as calm or as strong for our kids as possible when we're with them. You can find your outlets with other parents or family members, but when your kid's coming to you with some of these anxieties or worries, you really want to acknowledge them. So some tips that I would have with that is, first of all, you do want to recognize how they're feeling. So if they're saying they're stressed or they're worried, it's not really helpful to say, you don't have to worry, it's not a big deal, because they deserve to be worried and they're allowed to feel those things. So acknowledging, I get this is a really stressful time, buddy. It can be kind of worrisome not knowing what's going to happen. And then also adding to that by showing them things that they do have control over that you do feel assured by. So for example, you might say, yeah, I get that it is really stressful. One really good thing about it is I'm going to take you to school on the first day. We have these really cool face masks and this is going to be your schedule for the day. So we kind of know what to expect already. Maybe we can practice at home first.
And certainly, masks now do fall into the realm of fashion as well. So
For sure.
it can be fun too. So the other thing is the stigma. It starts with people coughing or having a fever, but, some people are going to get COVID,
Absolutely.
so, dealing with if you get it, right, and now you've got better, how to re-enter, but also if your friends or your classmates get COVID, not getting caught up in that stigma. So how can parents or, how can, kind of navigate that?
So for little ones, social stories are really helpful. And so what a social story is it's basically like a book or a story that talks about a specific issue, but in kind of kid-friendly language so that they can understand it. And they can also feel like whatever they're dealing with is really normalized. You can maybe search through as a parent some online resources for social stories about COVID-19. Because one of the things we want to do is we do want to normalize this is something that is happening in our world. People are getting it. Some of your friends might get it. Some of your family might get it. So even just having that conversation of, yes, this is scary and kind of worrisome, but it's also something that is going on. So that if your child does get it or a friend does get it, that it's something that there's already been a conversation about and you're kind of already preparing that this is something that can possibly occur.
And these ages too, youngsters tend to work things that work for them or really get into them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this, the hand sanitizer and the social distancing and the masks are almost, they're almost almost laws, right?
Yeah.
But in a social way. So not being, finding that balance of not being, the little judge or the little enforcer, but also on the other side, being respectful that some people require a higher standard now of masks and hygiene. How can families navigate, the rules?
So if I'm understanding this question properly, what I kind of see this as we're all going in and there's going to be some pretty set expectations for kids in terms of hygiene, in terms of masks, what's expected of them in their school. And so I think the biggest thing is, first of all, reviewing those expectations with your kid prior to Tuesday morning or Wednesday morning when they're going back to school. Sitting through it and talking with it through a child lens, whatever age group they're at, that's really appropriate for them to understand the expectations. Really reminding them of what they have control over. So, it's your body. You need to be making sure you're washing your hands, that your mask is on your face, whatever your expectations are within the home. And then acknowledging to your kid that it might be stressful if other people aren't respecting the rules. And then reminding them who's there to support them. So if it's in a school environment, that would likely be their teacher, an educational assistant, or an administrator. So they're in charge of their bodies and what they have to do with their bodies. And if they're really concerned about what others are doing, to refer to one of the adults that does have some sort of say of how the environment is being kind of controlled.
No, that's good. So now, okay, that's establishing the normal. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so what kind of things should parents be on the lookout for that would be signs that they should come on in and see you?
So anxiety is likely going to be one thing that's going to be coming up with all of these kids, and anxiety can manifest in really different ways. A lot of the times it's avoidance behaviors. So maybe your child is starting to say that they're sick, or they're kind of making excuses for not going to school in the mornings. Maybe they're coming home and they're telling you some pretty negative stories that are going on at school, or kind of talking about school in a different way than they usually did. And then most parents know their kids the best, or their caretakers. So if your child starts to behave somewhere that's kind of off their baseline behavior, that might be indicative that they're going through something. It depends on what age they're at in terms of what symptoms they might show, what capacity they have to have a conversation about it. But if you as a parent really feel like my kid just isn't the way that they usually do present, then that absolutely can be a time to reach out to someone to gain some additional support.
Okay, so and what can a family expect? You're going to bring a couple of our little ones in. They're they've lost it. We need help. What are they going to expect? What can we expect when we come to the office?
So one thing that I think most of the practitioners at Power Psychology, we really like to focus on is giving our clients tools to feel like they can take on whatever they're dealing with. And so it's not always a quick solution to be able to fix everything that's going on mentally and physically and emotionally, but we want to give you some tools that you can take and feel really confident using right away. So you can be confident that if you were to come into the office that we would be giving your child, or you as a parent if you're feeling really stressed, some tools that you can apply in the real world that would immediately address some of the anxiety that you're experiencing.
That's so good. So they can find you on the website, or how do they get a hold of you?
Yeah, so if you are to look into Power Psychology, we have an office in Sherwood Park and in Edmonton as well, and all of our booking is available online. You can also email or call our email or the number line that is available for Power Psychology if you want to inquire further about any of the services.
And you've got room in your client roster for new clients?
We do. And then we also have 2 new students that are joining us right away. I'm at Power Psychology, and so it is a discounted rate, which can make services a little bit more accessible for people if they don't have benefits or things like that. So we'll have 3 students available for services come the fall.
But there's some primary benefits, right, on everyone's Alberta healthcare, isn't there?
Yes.
Okay, so it doesn't, their first few visits aren't going to be out of pocket, right? They can use their Alberta healthcare.
If they have benefits, yeah. And so it just kind of depends. I always would encourage people to inquire with their benefits to make sure that they have some sort of awareness of what's covered and what professional they do need to be having. And at Power Psychology, we have a really big range of professionals that can help, ranging from students, counselors, registered psychologists, and provisional psychologists. So always check with your benefit provider just to see kind of where that fits in.
That's good advice. Now, I've tried to ask interesting and helpful questions and allow you to share everything that you wanted to share today. Is there anything that I've missed that you'd like to talk about?
I think the biggest thing that I really want to kind of put out in the world is that this is really a global trauma that everyone is dealing with, and they're all experiencing it very differently. But remember that there is a community of people around you that are struggling with something very similar. Everyone has their own unique story in terms of what they've had to deal with COVID. And as you enter into this world of sending your kids back to school, or if you're choosing to keep them at home, know that that's your choice as a parent to kind of choose what to do with your child, what's best for your family. And that this is a difficult situation. So if there is something that you're struggling with, that your child is struggling with, there is resources out there to help.
Well, that's so good. Thank you. Tune in with Power Psychology and find your joy. This week we've had Monica Frick, a counseling psychology master's student at Power Psychology. Thank you so kindly.
Thank you, James.
Bye now.
See you.